And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express tonight. We are going to be examining a big conversation about the road to economic recovery. There is the many interventions that the president had and the finance minister has put forward in the last few weeks, especially on the 30th of March. The finance minister was in Parliament and laid out a series of interventions to get the economy back on track in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic disruptions. We're going to look at these interventions and track the path to recovery in an economy that has taken a massive hit from the virus. But let's start tonight where we are with our case numbers. We know our case numbers still stands at 2,719, but the recovery is still at 294. The deaths still at 18. If you look at the way this is played out on the scale in terms of the regional balance, you also see that the hotspots still remain Greater Accra and Ashanti particularly. If you look at the economic plan that has been presented so far, a total of 1.2 billion cedis to alleviate the impact of the virus and the crisis is created as far as the economy is concerned. That's a big picture there. It includes a waiver of personal loans, taxes for all health workers for 3 months, which amounts to 241 million cedis. That's a huge amount of money that's going to come from, of course, monies that we have to find somewhere to deal with the challenge with the coronavirus and its impact on the economy. Allowance for 50% of basic salary for all frontline health workers as well, 80 million cedis. Soft loans for micro and small size businesses, 600 million. Now, this is one of the places where we've had some controversy because businesses are asking the question, how do we qualify for this? And we have some of the businesses on the show tonight to talk us through how they are managing to access this particular stimulus package that has been put together for businesses. We are also going to hear from the president. He's been meeting with the hospitality industry players, and he's talking to them about the 3 billion package that has been put together for all those struggling. We're going to get into that. Want to stay with us for this. The president announces 3 billion cedis for the hospitality industry, which we're going to be examining tonight also. So the road to economic recovery is going to be a hard one. The finance minister himself is on record to have admitted that this is going to be a difficult one. We're going to be speaking to those who are feeling the impact and those who are studying this, analyzing what it would take for us to get there and what will recovery look like. Stay with us. And thank you for staying with us. My guest tonight joining me on the show is Professor Godfred Bokwing. He is an economist. He's also a professor of finance with the University of Ghana. Of course, he's also the dean there. I'm grateful, Prof, for joining us here on PM Express. Also joining me tonight is Dr. Martin Ayanori, who is a lecturer at University of Health and Allied Sciences. He's also a health economist. Thank you, sir, for joining me. Also joining me from the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, is Sandio Sayajiman. He is in charge of cosmetics, a very important association if you want to assess and talk about the road to recovery. I mean, a lot of the players in that sector really prop up our economy. We'll also be joined, hopefully, by Bella Ayi Ahu, who is the president of the Ghana Tourism Federation. They've been meeting with the president today because of the impact of the coronavirus, particularly on the hospitality industry. And once you manage to get her, because of that meeting that they are in with the president, we will try and get her thoughts on this. They've been speaking already about getting some help with the challenges that the industry is facing. Mr. Sandio Sadma, I want to start with you. On the 30th of March, the finance minister was in Parliament and he put forward a number of interventions that they believe will help businesses, industry, etc., hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic. There was the 600 million cedis that was set aside for small and medium-scale enterprises, but there was also a syndication facility of $3 billion to support industry. And they were very specific in the areas, especially in pharmaceutical, hospitality, service, manufacturing sectors. I wonder, more than a month on, are industries feeling the impact of these interventions?
Not quite yet. We're still waiting. In fact, I've been in communication with some of the people involved in making sure the stimulus reach people. From what I understand, the modalities should be about ready now. So we're waiting to see what we need to do to understand what it would take to try to access these funds. People in my sector are in much need of these funds. Of course, you can tell we're not the only company struggling. Most manufacturing companies, from every level that you look at it, is struggling. And I think an intervention would help. My concern is this intervention going to be enough, given the fact that so many people might want to tap into it? So not until I can see the modalities and what it would take, the minimum, the maximum that a company can access, I can't say too much what the impact is going to be at this time.
So just to clarify, you haven't seen disbursements yet, and you don't even know the modalities for qualification yet?
Yes, I don't.
Okay.
I'm sure we get to know it hopefully this week or next week, and then that will just inform us what we need to do.
Okay.
If it's going to fit what our purposes are. You know, the challenge is whether you're manufacturing here and you depend on raw materials from outside to do your manufacturing, the impact is significant. Not only is the money part, but even if you purchase a raw material, say in the US or China, getting it to Ghana is going to take some time. So the time factor, the operating cycle of the time factor is also important. So if anything is going to be done, speed is of essence. The more it delayed, the difficult it becomes to even get products here, and then the difficulty we have with our revenue generating and all of that. And you know that most of us are also challenged with the staff. So you guys have to find a way to try to keep your staff. Quicker that you can get the stimulus, then the better off. We have to innovate in such a way that we keep our staff. For example, production is slow because access to raw materials is not there. So what we decided to do is, instead of letting people go home, we turn all the people on the production line into quote-unquote sales team. So we've given them some training, and we've equipped them to go out in the field and meet our customers. That seems to pick their morale, and also at least you generate some revenue that can help you meet your expenses, especially payroll expenses. So these are some of the little things that we are doing to stay up.
Mr. Sarge, must stay with me, and we've tried to get the government to try and understand where we are with the stimulus packages that had been announced, 600 million, 3 billion to support industry, etc. We haven't been successful all day. So we're still hoping that in the coming days we'll get some clarity on the modalities, how you can access all those details. But Professor Bokpin, surprised to hear that from the AGI's point of view, it's been more than a month since the finance minister went to Parliament and laid out the plan and talked about the investment and the monies are put aside to stimulate the economy and industry. But it appears that the money is not getting there yet, or hasn't even started to get to those who mostly need it. What's your reaction to that?
I think that is a bit unfortunate. I believe that given where we find ourselves, I think help needs to reach our industries very quickly. Usually the data is not so difficult to get compared to households or individuals, or the extent of the informality of our economy. So I think that the government would need to speed up, and particularly would have to be a bit more transparent and greater disclosure in terms of the modalities for assessing the fund. And then what is it that, because even if the government comes out with the modalities, let's say this week, it doesn't mean that next week industries will begin to assess that, because what it will mean is that industries will also have to take that and then begin to work towards that. If there's any proposal they have to put together, certainly there has to be something that is bankable enough. There has to be something that indicate that those businesses that are receiving the support have the going concern, that are much more sustainable, and also they are also in line with the new thinking in terms of the new normal, because we have to do so to increase local content in our economy, and we have to do so to ensure that we are able to we put the monies in those industries or firms where the productivity can be higher. That is the way we have to do it. So given that the stakes are very high, we've done an expensive 3-week lockdown, and I think that it will be in the best interest of government also, and all of us, to ensure that help reaches our industries much speedily and on time. And the reason this has to be quite quick is that the amount is not that much. If you look at the financing gap right now, we are talking about billions of cedis. Yeah. And therefore, this is not that much. It doesn't have to delay so much, because the more it delay, the less the less of value will it be to industries, and the more it's going to hurt us. Don't forget that this is the first halftime probably we're going to have in 100 years. So as other countries are a bit more efficient in how they are reaching out to their industries, we are in a globalized world. Even though globalization is at a risk to some extent, we need to keep an eye on what is happening elsewhere also. So we in the new normal, we are able to take advantage of that. So I believe that something should have been out there long ago. I believe this question was asked on the 30th of March, when the modalities would come and all of that. And I think it has taken a little bit longer. And by now, my expectation would have been that government would have been in consultation with the AGI, would have been in consultation with the Private Enterprise Federation, and then the various business associations, to also pick input from them, so that we can minimize the back and forth and the suspicion that perhaps may be cooking up.
Mm. I mean, so that is so important with the delay. I'll come. I want to bring in, thankfully, Bella Ayi, who is the president of the Ghana Tourism Federation, and I'm grateful that she could join me, because if you read the finance minister's presentation to Parliament on the 30th when he announced the measures, he singled out the hospitality industry, and this is the picture he painted, that hotel occupancy rates are, down from 70% to 30%. Staff are being sent home. He talks about, even before the lockdown, restaurants were already experiencing an average drop in patronage of 60%. And many of the conferences that have been cancelled had led to a loss of 1,000 combined participants, and therefore a loss of 1,000 hotel beds. It's possibly one of the most hardly hit parts of the economy. Today, the members of the hospitality industry, they've been meeting with the president. The president made some commitments to them. Some of the things I've already touched on was in the 30th March presentation to Parliament. But I want to listen to the president when he met with the hospitality industry players today at the Jubilee House.
Apart from this 600 million fund for SMEs, there are also two other sources of money that are being specifically directed at you, I mean, amongst others, but you are an important part of it. The commercial banks have agreed with the Minister of Finance and the Bank of Ghana to raise some 3 billion cedis by way of loans that they're going to give specific industries. The hospitality sector is one of them. And the Bank of Ghana, again with the support of the Minister of Finance, has worked towards reducing interest rates and even putting in place a moratorium on the payment of principal and I believe of interest on monies. So there's a package there also that is available and accessible to you. There's a subsequent package that is also being currently negotiated between the ministry and the Bank of Ghana for a much larger sum of money to be pumped into the economy to support and empower the more productive sectors of the economy. And once again, the hospitality sector is one of it. So this, I don't think you should make too much of a fetish of this 600 million cedis. It's not the only sum of money that is going to be available to you for the recovery. There are other sums, even more substantial sums than that, which you're going to be able to have access to. I'm not quite sure about the dedicated fund, but these are the ongoing discussions that we have to look at.
Bella is with me. He is the president of the Ghana Tourism Federation. Bella, you heard the president today. The $3 billion he talks about was first disclosed by the finance minister. We talked about it earlier on the 30th of March. There's 600 million as well. I wonder, in that period of 1 month plus, and I know you've met with the sector minister before this, and assurances have been made. I wonder whether in the intervening period of close to 2 months, have you or any of your members access any of the government help or facilities that we've heard of?
Good evening. You sound rather very, very faint. And if I may ask, are you asking whether we've been able to access any of the funding?
Yes, any of the funding that we've heard of from the finance minister on the 30th of March. Even before that, you'd also met with the sector minister, who's also made some assurances. I'm just wondering, in that period, has any of those facilities been made available to yourself or any of your members at all?
Not yet. But we have been in talks with NBSSI as to, so we're putting up modalities in place. And I believe that as soon as this is done, there would be disbursement. But as at now, we're still working on the modalities.
Okay. In terms, are you able now to quantify how much of a loss this industry is taking in monetary terms because of this particular crisis you're in?
In actual fact, those are some of the modalities that we're working on, because it's a huge industry, and restaurants, for example, we're putting our data and all that together and submit to the various funding homes. So we actually putting our losses together, which is actually very, very, very huge. A total shutdown, and I mean, nobody is working. None of the industries is actually working. Even though restaurant, for example, we are to do some deliveries, but people are supposed to stay home. So delivery is, I mean, is a complete shutdown. And as we know, hotels are completely shut down. And so it's, we hope that by close of day on Thursday, the monetary value of our losses would have been done with it, and then we can then talk to that issue.
When I listen to the president, I get a sense that when you met him, you had expressed I guess, unease about the adequacy of the 600 million that was initially mentioned, and he then mentions that there's 3 billion as well. In that conversation, did you get assurances that, and I heard the president talk about the fact that the hospitality industry is important, but I wonder in terms of the actual nitty-gritty of accessing the stimulus package, were there conversations about that sort of detail, so you got out today knowing exactly what it would take to actually access this and then turn around those struggling businesses in the hospitality industry?
Yes. You know, as I said earlier, you know, the industry is graded. Graded. We have the high ice up there. We have the middle and the lower level, the traditional caterers. We have the grade 1, grade 2 restaurant. We have the high ones over there. So we actually trying to segment the totality of all these. the high-eyes, the moving pigs, and all that under the hotels. We now have to put them together, which we are almost done with. We're putting up the 3, 2, and 1 and the budget star hotel to know what the actual loss is. We're looking at the traditional caterers or the indigenous caterers as to their losses as well. So I must say that, I must confess that it's a lot of work. But we're hoping that by Thursday, all these modalities would have come to an end and we would be come out with actuals. But we actually believe and know that the 600 is actually inadequate. Looking at the volume, the size of the industry. We have the hotels, we have the restaurants, we have the tour guiding, we have aviation, and a host of associations under the tourism sector. And so we're taking it sector by sector, and then we're trusting that by Thursday, we would have been done.
I mean, let me bring in, stay with me, Bella, for a second. I want to bring in Dr. Ayanori. Doc, tell me, 3 billion cedis, 600 million, realistically, does the economy have what it takes to bear this cost, what it would take to help businesses stay in business so the economy doesn't shut down?
Yeah, Evans, very good evening to all your viewers at home. I think that fundamentally, like the president said, we may not have all now, but we have what it takes to be able to make the deficits in terms of revenue. It is important for us to focus broadly on other sources of revenue. I think that in the wake of COVID-19, we have had IMF coming out clearly to say that, okay, they could put some money into African economies that are suffering or are in deficits, because globally it's predicted that foreign direct investments would decrease by 15% across the globe, particularly in Africa. And the ADB Bank, for instance, African Development Bank, has pledged to commit $10 billion to assist countries in Africa to be able to soar up their economies and then make revenues available. So I think that in a nutshell, governments still have other sources of revenue to inject into the economy. The 600 million may just be a start, like our other panelists are saying. We need to look at other modalities of where we can raise extra revenue. As indicated by the other panelists, I think that the impact of this COVID-19 on our economy is very tremendous. So we need to look at other measures to be able to free fiscal space to make money available from other areas for that purpose. So, I mean, there's potential in that. I would say there's need for government to look at all sources and look at where we can be able to maximize these revenues. But like Prof said, one of the key things I want to just highlight based on what they said is the aspects of transparency and accountability. That is very important and fundamental. That these revenues are coming in, they'll get to the businesses that are adversely affected so that these businesses can get back onto their feet, even post-COVID-19. So that's very important. I
mean, Prof. Bokwing, so the road to recovery is going to be hard. I mean, from what I've heard from Bella and Sandy Osagyman, I mean, we've seen the challenges. But I wonder, government has put the figures out there, and this is what they're doing for businesses. If you need the businesses so the economy can still remain alive. Knowing what you know about our economy, same question. Are we able, is this economy able, with all the help we're getting and the IMF intervention, the capping of the stabilization fund, is this economy able to carry the burden of taking care of the hospitality industry, AGI, and keeping them afloat?
No, not at all. Not at all. We are in for a long haul. The journey ahead is a bit dark. We can sound very positive, but the reality on the ground is that the recovery process is going to be very challenging. The reason is that if you look at government, the fiscal space we have right now, government is seriously burdened because the health spending has picked up considerably. There are other ongoing projects or programs that will require revision or adjustment. If you look at the annual budget funding amount and how COVID-19 has impacted government petroleum revenue receipt, that is very serious. That has implication for the sustainability of free senior high school. We have done other kinds of subsidies as well. If you look at the statement the finance minister made in parliament, he told us that the impact of COVID-19 has increased our fiscal deficit from 18.9 billion cedis or so to 30.2 billion cedis. And then he gave us a roadmap about how to close that gap. So they talked about the IMF and all of that. So, but it is not the case, and it is not our expectation that all businesses will be able to come back to life. And not all businesses will stay afloat, even with whatever support government would want to give. And that is where we have to prioritize in terms of the limited resources to ensure that help actually goes to those sectors, businesses, firms that have got the potential to actually increase the marginal productivity in terms of the gain we are hoping to make. Because we don't have a lot of money, so we can't throw monies away that way. So there has to be a clear modality that must be also come along with greater transparency and disclosure that enables stakeholders to also evaluate that. That is very, very important. Then also in our road to recovery, Evans, I think it will be good to also prioritize agriculture and the value chain within agriculture. That is very, very key, because so far we haven't heard so much about that sector. But because if you look at the household survey that we have done, and you look at the proportion of the disposable income that Ghanaians spend on foodstuff and all of that, because there's a whole threat to food security as well. That should not be lost on us. So, of course, some industries are crying louder than others, but I believe that we need to take a holistic view going forward. And I want to also touch a little bit on what my colleague talked about, Dr. Ayanuri, that, I mean, in crisis moments like it, integrity violations tend to be very high. And then it breeds suspicion and all of that in terms of violation of procurement procedures and all of that. We have to ensure that there's greater value for money in how all these interventions are actually carried out along all the value chain. So we will need to be very careful, because we do not expect that all the businesses will come back. But businesses must equally put forward a sound proposal to justify that intervention. So let's not sit back and think that, well, this is money that will just will be distributed like a helicopter dropping of cedis all around. So, and I believe that industries are very much aware of that. Because the money is not enough, it has to be done in such a way that it goes to the critical areas where we can get a lot of gains also from that area. Yeah. Then it is also important that businesses look beyond the support from government and begin to also engage the private sector, the financial institutions, because we know that the support from government is woefully inadequate. That is not to suggest that government is insensitive, but we find ourselves in a situation where it's very difficult to ask for more without burdening the public purse. That is a critical issue right now. So we need to manage the trade-off also very well, because we are not only in, it's not only just in terms of economic crisis, there's health crisis that hasn't been resolved totally. And then also there are other, so if you look at Ghana so far, because we've worked from one crisis since 2012, energy crisis, then we walked into financial sector crisis, and now into a deeper crisis, you realize that the wounds are much deeper than we thought. And that is what is going to affect our recovery process. So for us, and I think our expectations must also be moderate. We do not expect a quick V-shaped recovery. We do not expect even a normal U-shaped recovery. Perhaps a little bit of L-shape, where the recovery process may take a little longer. It's going to be painful. But what is also important is not, apart from the financial support government is doing, we need to think about the governance arrangements that should also come along with it. So that we make sure that the private sector also put in place the right or the good corporate governance arrangement that would ensure that it will guarantee the long-term survival of those businesses.
Yeah, I want to bring in Sandy. I want to bring in Sandy Osagyman with the AGI. What is the level of realism that industry players are attaching to this assistance that you're anticipating from government? I asked that because of what I just heard from Professor Bokwe. is industry completely relying on the anticipated government support, or you are finding your own ways of surviving? And there's a sense of realism that says, listen, the truth is some of these industries will die as a result of this and may never recover and will be lost forever. And so let's cut our losses and save those who can. I mean, what's your level of realism there?
I think it's a mixed bag of things. I'm of the opinion that something we don't do much in Ghana, maybe this might be the time for us to consider doing. We don't do measures here at all. We don't do strategic measures. This might be a time where you can group up maybe 2 or 3 small companies together if they have a common need, and then you support them, and then that might help. Instead of just helping one small company, maybe 3 companies can pull together their resources and form one quote-unquote big company.
But is the private sector willing to come together, though, and merge? Do you see a willingness on the part of the private sector?
I'm sure some of us will. I'm sure some of us will be willing to do that. So it's something that's not done here, not encouraging Ghana. Each one for himself kind of business that we run here. So I'm saying, given the challenges that we have now, this might be the time that we consider the things that is not ordinary. There might be people with capital that want to invest. How do we isolate them? That, hey, this is a good business that we have. We need some money to be able to overcome this and grow. We don't have enough access to sources of funds to tap into. So when the government says it's going to give us this money, everybody's going to rush to it. And what I'm afraid about this is that if, say, a company A wants 3 million cedis to be able to overcome the challenges, maybe what he can get is 500,000 cedis.
Yeah.
What good is it to do that company taking 500 cedis? Then what Professor is saying will come true. Then definitely some companies going to have to fail. But rather than fail, why don't we also start having a conversation where mergers or acquisitions can be encouraged and it can be done that way? I think that might be another way that can help, instead of just focusing on the low resources that everybody's going to rush to get portion of. So that's the way I see it. Also, from our point of view, I look at it as that we, the individual companies, have to think like the micro level. How do I survive on my own? Okay, assuming nothing was coming, how can I survive till maybe the economy improve that I can ride with it? So these are some of the internal things that you can do. Normally, the easiest thing to do is let me cut staff, let me do this, let me do that. But then one way might be to take a look at what you're selling. Maybe consider applying the 80-20 rule, that maybe if you had 10 items that you were selling, will you be better off maybe concentrating on 2 instead of the 10? And then that way your cash needs or cash requirement might be reduced. And over time, you can make up the difference in the revenue with the 2 items versus spreading the low resources on so many items. So the micro level is for us to look at ways that we can survive, and the micro level to see what support that the government is offering can do to help us. Yeah. The other thing that I'm seeing is that maybe there has to be some kind of sensitization with the industries. Nobody's heard anything how this money is going to be dispersed yet. Maybe some information has to be given out on periodic basis so people can prepare themselves.
Let me ask a question on that. Has the association proactively reached out to the finance ministry or to the trade to find out what is the modality going to be, and what responses have you gotten from that?
The association has been part of the meetings that they've been having to come out with the modalities, but they haven't had anything specific to report to the members yet. But I know that they've been involved in some of the discussions. What I'm saying is that it's been a month. Let some of the information come out so that even some of us who can right away say we disqualify ourselves, given this, we can make our mind ready that
and chase alternatives. Say it again. And start going after alternatives if you're not getting this.
So if most people are sitting out here thinking they're going to tap into it and they don't make any alternative plans, and then they're not able to tap into it, their speed of collapsing becomes greater. So I think that before anything is given out, some communication can be given out ahead of time so people or companies can prepare them.
Bella, let me ask you from the hospitality industry. Can the industry survive without the promised help from government? And even if it comes and it's not adequate, what then happens? Is there a fallback plan for industry players, Bella?
Thank you very much. We are completely flat. We are completely flat. So without support, it will be difficult to even get up on our knees. No industry is, I mean, we are down. We are completely down.
I see. So there's not even a plan B.
We need support.
There's not even a plan B.
The plan B can, as my brother is saying, should be talking to each other. But you know, as he rightly said, it's not very common with us coming together as companies in the hospitality sector. Is it going to be hotel A and B coming together to operate as one? It is actually very, very difficult. What we were proposing today or suggesting today was that let's take a closer look at the local tourism, domestic tourism. Should we be looking at that area more seriously, where tour operators will now look at having packages for families, for bride and grooms? You might not get what you used to get previously. Can we be looking at events, for example, the 10-seater table now taking only about 5 people? These are the areas we are actually looking at, because we cannot depend totally on what government is promising. We don't know when it will come, and we cannot be. So we are actually looking at how we can major in the area of domestic tourism. And today, when we met the president, we suggested to him that just as he led the year of return and the whole world came agog, we were suggesting that, yes, Mr. President, we want you to declare domestic tourism campaign, and then the private sector will drive it. So this is what I may say will be the plan B for now, that smaller scale, not moving more than 10, I mean the protocols that we are to observe, so that internally we could be knowing our country at this time in smaller pieces, in smaller packages, north moving to the south, south moving to the east, east to the west, and that kind of thing. So this is actually what I would say is the plan B we are thinking of, because it's not easy to just be at home and doing nothing.
Well, this is going to be really tough.
So this is our plan B for now.
Yeah, this is going to be really tough, Bella. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, I'll bring in my academics on the question of, okay, so what will the recovery look like, and the road to that recovery. The Finance Ministry have laid out a series of measures. We've heard already how difficult it's going to be to carry and bear the burden of turning this around. And so if that is not going to work, what will work? Stay with me. My guest on PM Express tonight, Professor Bokwe. He is a professor in finance, economics as well. Dr. Ayanori, he is a health economist. He's also a lecturer at the University of Allied Sciences. Sandy Osajima is the AGI chairman in charge of cosmetics. And of course, you've had Bella Ayeyi-Ahu, who of course is the president of the Ghana Federation of the Ghana Tourism Federation. They met the president today. We've been talking a lot about reviving the industries and keeping the economy afloat. However, this is a crisis brought on because of a health issue, coronavirus. And so government is torn between fixing the health challenges, which is the immediate one because it's life and death, and then also helping businesses, the hospitality industry, because they are the lifeblood of our economy. I wonder, Dr. Ayanori, how does government strike that balance?
Yes, Evans, that's a difficult thing to do, but what we need to realize is that if the economy is not working, our health systems will fail. That's a very fundamental truth. So there's need to be a balance between the economy being soared up or keeping strong, and then with our health systems working. So I think that from government projections, we are likely to have 4.2% drop in GDP based on the projections for this year. So that means that health sector allocations would definitely have to go down. But just like Prof. Bonkin said, because we are facing a pandemic, we have seen government increasing the expenditure in health. So that in a way is good for us because it is going to be able to provide the essential medicines and drugs, and then to retool the pharmaceutical industry, for instance, based on the recent stimulus package that was announced. It is also going to address something that has to do with access to health. That is very fundamental. Because one of the things that we must be mindful in this period of COVID is how we are going to protect vulnerable groups not to move into out of pocket or to spend more from their pocket to be able to access health. And now that we are talking about economic livelihoods eroding because of COVID-19, we need to be able to strike that balance to ensure that we do not unnecessarily push people into catastrophic health expenditure that is not having enough to spend on health and then putting them or pushing them further into poverty. So that is a difficult thing for government to deal. But I think that based on the stimulus packages that have been rolled out, the finance minister addressed in Parliament the last time, he was very categorical on how much government is spending on health. I think that it will, the increased spending in health will be able to address some gaps in terms of our health financing. It will be able to make monies available to address certain key essential things to ensure that the continuity of healthcare that our health system needs will continue to grow. But the long run, what we must bear in mind that this COVID-19 is not going to go away today. It's going to take more than a year to recover. So we need long-term planning in terms of how much we are going to fund our health systems moving forward from now.
Yeah, I mean,
bearing into consideration the other things like the hospitality industry
and etc. I want to bring in quickly Professor Bopwing. Let me bring Professor Bopwing. Prof, I mean, so clearly from what we've heard so far from the Association of Ghana Industries and Bella with the hospitality industry, the intervention so far has revolved around government putting money into the economy, so stimulus package, and then their tax reliefs, etc., etc. Yeah. If those aren't adequate, as we've had articulated quite eloquently, what then would work in helping this economy? Because I dare say this economy hasn't faced any challenge such as theirs in our history. This is possibly the gravest economic challenge this economy is facing. So if these interventions aren't enough, what will be your recommendation? What else should government do to recover?
So it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. So because we are not only in health crisis, we are talking economic crisis as well, financial crisis, liquidity challenges and all of that. I believe that if you look at government approach now, that has changed from what it was at the beginning. So at the beginning, we had prioritized saving lives, because saving lives is not the same as saving livelihoods. Yeah. So but now you realize that government is pursuing the two. We are saving lives, we are saving livelihoods. Of course, it's very difficult to come out of this unhurt. I mean, it's normal this way. So you realize that because through no fault of industries, and that is not to suggest that it's the fault of government. So anytime there are crises and industries going concern are seriously at risk like this, everybody, the user-friendly thing to do is to call on government. So all over the world, regardless of the strength of our economies, whether US, whether Kenya, South Africa or so, the call is on government to do a little bit more. Because the point is that government is in a better position to ramp up a little bit more debt in crisis moment like this than the private sector. So because the government balance sheet may be much more stronger than the private sector. And that is why the call is on government to do a little bit more and make sure that whatever intervention we want to do, look, we will not need all the money, because we can't get all the money to do the recovery. So what is important is that the limited financial resources that we have to make sure that we maximize the alternative uses of those cash resources in the kind of balancing act manner, so that so that what goes into health to not necessarily compromise the ability of the other critical sectors of the economy to also to aid that recovery. Now, but because we have come from one crisis to the other to this one, we should all be moderate with our expectations. And what it also means is that individuals, at private sector and then government, we all have to be moderate and be prudent with how we spend our money. Because the point is that private debt is also likely to go up because a lot more industries are going to find it difficult to service their loans, their principal, in terms of the existing debt stock, in terms of private debt. But then again, you realize that the public sector level is also going up. Yeah. So fundamentally, government is in a fix to some extent. Yeah. We all do recognize that. But I believe that if you look at the support that the avenues that government has, it's much more better than the private sector in terms of even external help. But whatever help that we get, no matter how little that it is, we have to make sure that it goes to those critical areas.
Those who mostly need it. Let me ask you, just before, because of time, and briefly in like less than a minute, what will recovery look like? When we say we've recovered, what would it look like?
Well, there's one way of looking at this is to look at pre-pandemic level, where we were projecting growth to be around 6.8%. But now growth is projected to decelerate sharply to 1.5% with the partial lockdown. That's worst scenario. So you can stabilize, but that is different from recovery. Okay, so recovery we are looking at beyond 3 years. Beyond 3 years. And then we should also be looking at what kind of recovery is Ghana looking for. Recovery with job creation or the kind of jobless growth we have seen over the years. Because right now, the world is on a half time. So people are re-strategizing all over the world. Look, in the midst of COVID-19, people are still going into the space. People are launching missiles and all of that. So the world is on half time. What is our strategy going into the second half? And what kind of economy or Ghana do we want to have post-COVID-19? So we need to think through that very carefully and see all the and link all the dots predominantly and see where are our comparative advantage. And how do we back that with the necessary competitive advantage? I will propose a great-led economic recovery.
Okay, that's a very interesting conclusion. Agric-led, and if you do agric-led, and I wonder where that leaves Bella and the hospitality industry, and then AGI with all the industries. But I guess that is a big conversation for another day. I'm grateful, gentlemen and lady, for joining me on PM Express. Look, we're not out of this yet. There's more on this in the coming weeks, months, and even years. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us for tonight.